So, so let's just go through, introduce ourselves, who we're with, and what brings us here. Um, and I guess I'd like to know our interest in what brought us to local foods, or where our interest stands. So I'll start. Craig Burns. I'm an assistant professor of social work at UND, and have been interested in food access issues, and particularly around indigenous populations. When I lived and worked as a social worker in Hawaii and on Guam, and so when I relocated to North Dakota, I was naturally drawn to that, and am here now. Um, so, Karen.
Hi everyone, this is Karen Ahrens. I'm in Bismarck in my home office. I work, I'm a dietitian, and let's see, I started typically where you would think most dietitians would work in the hospital and nursing home setting, and then really got to want to have an impact before people became ill with diseases like diabetes and heart disease, and why that was happening. And so got more interested in prevention, and then still kept flowing upstream, or trying to swim upstream to uncover why, how it got harder for people to access food, and with less resources, and working in food insecurity, and local foods as a source of food for everyone. That's my story in a nutshell. And I complete my role as the coordinator for the Creating Hunger Free North Dakota Coalition at the end of this month.
So, and these introductions pay off, because Karen, I had no idea you were a dietitian, and I've learned that, so I learned something new today too. So I'm just going to go through my windows here. Anne, can you stay brief? Because I know we're going to have you introduce yourself in detail later on.
Yeah, I'm coming to you from the school parking lot or the pickup line, but my name is Ann Olson, and I've hopped on a couple of meetings in the past. We own Hilltop Farm in Des Lacs. I'm a large animal veterinarian by trade, so I have a big interest in food safety all the way from production through the end. We grow produce and baked goods and things like that on our farm. And most recently, we'll get into it later, I was hired as a local foods coordinator for Strengthen ND.
All right. Mr. Barfield, Robert Barfield. Okay, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Bloomhagen. I'm currently the Executive Director for Farms and the Board Chair for North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance. And I grew up on a small farm in central North Dakota near Drake, and my mom always had huge gardens and was really into eating healthy. We were granolas before it was cool. And that stayed with me through my whole life. I did a Master of Public Administration and Environmental Studies, and then when I moved home to North Dakota, I got involved with our local food movement here. So Farms helps beginning farmers and support sustainable agriculture, and for them to succeed, they need access to markets, which is what the Local Food Development Alliance is building. So that's why we are involved.
I do my introduction since my name's not on the screen. Claire Losuter. I am local foods coordinator for Bismarck specifically, so my scope is a little more limited. I am on the board of the Alliance and Farms, and not from North Dakota, but grew up gardening, and then met another gardener, got married, and we've been kind of building towards our dream of having a hobby farm, which we pretty much have now. And yeah, always with local foods in North Dakota, I was interested in Bismarck when we moved to the Bismarck Mandan area, and then met Lori Martin, who got me involved with farms. So I've just met a lot of great people through this network.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christine Kosick. I'm the local foods marketing specialist for the North Dakota Department of Agriculture. I took Jamie Good's job, Craig, if you're familiar with him.
Yes, I remember you now. Yep.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Anyway, so I started this position in July. I have kind of a background in media and communication stuff. I actually worked for the city doing communication work before I came up here. And then let's see here. I had a side business where I grew and processed food and then sold canned goods at farmers markets. And I did that for probably about 8, well, not quite 8 years, but probably this would be my 8th year of like doing that and selling it, I think. So, and I still continue to do that. I just kind of focus on like the bigger craft shows instead of the farmers markets now that I'm in this position. But I have a big interest in that and definitely a lot of love and passion for it. So that's kind of what led me to this position.
Awesome. Thank you. Quinn. You there? Quinn once, Quinn twice. Jacob, Mr. Davis.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I haven't been on in some of the calls. I've been in a writing workshop that's concurrent with the time frames of the calls for the last 8 weeks. So I just wanted to apologize for not being on the last couple calls. I work for Prevent Child Abuse North Dakota. I'm the tribal programming director for that organization. And then I also work with the CDC Healthy Outcomes program, specifically with 2 coalitions in Sioux County and Rolette County. And actually this week we have our Fall Harvest Festival. Everything's virtual again like it was last year. So I'll share that in the link if anyone wants to check it out.
Fantastic.
Happy to be here again.
All right. Glad to have you back. Okay, Quinn or Bob, either one back with us yet? Once, twice. Okay. I'm not the most patient person, as you can tell. So we wanted to take a few minutes this as we near the end of 2021 with what is, for many reasons, was a challenging year, but focusing specifically on the growing season. Could you all just give us some feedback, and everyone, but I'm really interested and curious to hear from the producers and people involved in that line. What were some challenges about this past growing season in this past year?
Oh, Craig, I just wanted to make sure Felicity got the chance to introduce herself. I
Oh,
know
I'm
you didn't
sorry,
mean to, but-
Felicity. I did not mean to. I'm so sorry. Yes.
That's totally fine. I was like, I know everyone here, so
Yeah.
that's okay. But I'm Felicity Merritt. I'm the program manager at Farms. My background is in the sciences. I've always been interested in agricultural research, mostly focusing on sustainability and world food security. And I got involved first with Farms, actually, doing a farmers market internship, and then after that got involved with the Local Food Development Alliance, and then I'm now working as a program manager for all of Farms programming. So I've always just been interested in the full cycle of food, from growing it, harvesting, processing, and eating it, and I've always loved food and everything involved with it. So I think that's what kind of drew me to the local foods atmosphere here in North Dakota. And I'm located in Fargo, where I work remotely, but I grew up in Oregon.
All right. Thank you, Felicity.
Yeah.
And so back to the challenges for the past year. What were some of the more challenging aspects of this growing season and the local foods scene overall? Okay, well, at least is I can't get upset with my students for not talking in class anymore. So anyone?
Craig, I could talk a little bit about what we saw at Minot Farmers Market. We had a record number of vendors, which was awesome. You know, we all struggled with the drought and the heat, of course, but I think overall it ended up being a much longer and more productive growing season than we anticipated. One of our struggles was we had more vendors continuing through the nice weather this fall than we had customers for. So that was kind of an interesting problem to have. We normally trickle off to 1 or 2 vendors through October, and we had maybe 5 to 6 routinely coming. So, you know, our challenge for next year will be how do we really continue to market through the whole season and, you know, to make that effective for our vendors who were diligent about showing up through the heat. We changed to an afternoon market 1 day a week, and that was really a great success in Minot. So offering some other time options for our customers. So definitely a challenging year, but overall, I think a very successful one for a lot of our vendors.
Great. Fantastic. Anyone else?
And which farmer's market was this?
We are the Minot Farmers Market, so we are in Oak Park. Been around for quite a while, many, many years, I think over 40. So
Okay.
I
Is
just,
any, oh, yes, I'm
I
sorry.
was
Go
gonna
ahead,
add on
please.
to farmers markets specifically, and with customers. I think I've noticed the last couple of years working with markets that customers are super excited in June, July about farmers markets when they're really, and especially this year was not a lot for produce, and then forget that it's not until September and even into October that a lot of our farmers have the most plentiful harvests in North Dakota. So I don't know, something to keep in mind for future on like the marketing side is just our farmers work so hard to try and extend the season, but I think the customers need to be aware of that too.
Right.
I want to hop onto what Felicity just said.
Yeah.
I help with Biz Market as part of my job. And it's one of the farmers markets in Bismarck, North Dakota. Yeah, we see once school starts, the customer base changes and also drops off quite a bit. So we've been talking about like, okay, how can we remind families like, just maybe you don't want to spend your whole Saturday here, but like you can still come by and there's going to be more selection than there was when you were coming in June. And it always cracks me up too when people come in June and they're like, where's all the vegetables? They're like, well, our last frost date was like 2 weeks ago, folks. Like, we can't, you know, not everybody has like the ability to extend the season. But, and then I didn't mention before, but like, well, kind of part of our hobby farm is we raise duck eggs and sell primarily to the Bisman Food Co-op. And with the drought, the ducks were really unhappy. And I know some other folks, the chickens were the same way. Like, so we were at like the height of the season, we're hardly getting any eggs at all. And like now in the fall, they've been laying a lot better because the weather is so much more pleasant. So, and then, yeah, I know some of the farmers at the farmers market were struggling because they could not keep things watered. And then with I work with the Bismarck Farm School program, and some of the farmers were like, in August, said, we don't have any produce, sorry. You know, and then thankfully things, you know, September was such a nice month. So we were able to get quite a bit of food in for the fall. But yeah, end of the summer, I think was really bleak.
Interesting. Yeah. Any other firsthand experience or stories from the field that others have heard of some of the biggest challenges this past year? Okay, so we've heard kind of in talking about the challenges, some positive things. Any successes or any positive things for the year? I know you mentioned the kind of the mild September, and we gave a little more there at the end, but other successes or other positives or other learning experiences or lessons learned from the past year?
I think the people knowing, people who haven't had gardens, knowing the seasonality of food just has always been a need to educate since I've been involved with local food and farmers markets. And so I think that's a challenge, but also an opportunity to try and continue to educate and inform people about, spinach and lettuce may come in June and July, and when the other things start. And I know, Christine, you have a kind of or a guide for seasonal produce on the Department of Ag website, I think. So I think that's an opportunity that a lot of groups could take on to help educate people of when to look for food.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this? Successes, lessons learned, positive outcomes from 2021.
We had hosted one of the farm's interns again this year for Farmers Market. And so again, big thank you to them for that program. It was another really helpful thing to have. She was a great intern and she might be a vendor next year for us at Farmers Market. So she really enjoyed it. With having an intern, we were able to find out that when we could have an event per se at market or a kids day, we had our first kids farmers market. We were able to draw in a lot of new people and a good sized crowd. And we also brought in food trucks for the first time. And that was also a really good thing and a nice partnership for us to have.
Really cool. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I just lost the agenda. Where'd it go?
I can add something while you're looking for your.
Yes, thank you.
With I think the pandemic kind of instigated a renewed interest in local foods. And so, for example, Anne said she had, was it like 10, 15, a lot of new vendors at Minot Farmers Market. And so we held a webinar in June. Felicity and I brought together some seasoned vendors and market managers to share tips and strategies for success, especially if you're a new farmers market vendor trying this out for the first time. And we had a really good registration and attendance at that, around 40 people registered. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to support farmers markets. And so it's both a success and a challenge because the grant that funded that webinar and the farmers market interns has ended. So, like at farms, we're thinking about what is our role in supporting farmers markets? How can we be working with other orgs like Farmers Market Growers Association? The farmers market managers and interns responded really well to that internship program. But so what other things could we be doing to support like market managers? So.
Right. And anyone else before we move on? Okay. All right. So, Stephanie, the next two, I don't know if those are yours to give us updates about the VISTA position and the farm to school training.
I can share about our VISTA position, and I've asked Christine to talk about farm to school.
Fantastic. Okay.
So North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance has been awarded a VISTA position from Southwest Basin Planning Council. And I just need to finish a little bit of paperwork and get that position posted. That is going to be a communications coordinator. So We had a great experience having Felicity as our AmeriCorps member for the past year, and she did a lot of coordinations work. So we're building on that with the Vista position. So this person will be doing outreach, social media posts, sharing meeting reminders, but also we'd like to have them do an outreach campaign to educate organizations and the public about why local foods matters. Because we need customers in order to grow a local foods movement. So if you have anyone in mind who might be interested, this is it's about a 32-hour-a-week position, but you might be able to do it in less. You can have another job. Vista is really about the learning experience and professional development. And you do get an education award at the end. So it's especially great for somebody who's still finishing their schooling. So I'll get that posted on our page as soon as it's ready, and I will be recruiting a hiring committee from the board and membership to help hire that person. So help spread the word.
Really, thank you. Perfect. So Christine, you're going to talk to us about farm to school training.
Yeah, so let's see, that was in the end of October. I participated, along with several people on this call, participated in a national farm to school training. So I'll just start by giving kind of a brief overview of what we kind of learned and where we went from there. So basically, my team, the North Dakota Farm to School team, I guess you could call us, which consists of Mary Podal from USDA, me, Stephanie, who's on this call, Jan from NDSU, Claire, who's on this call, Felicity, and Deb Egeland and Rhonda Amundsen from DPI, the educational section of the state, have all took this national training in October. And due to it overlapping with another work commitment I had, I was only able to attend 2 days of the training. But after that, our team of people got together and we kind of followed up with each other and decided we were going to hopefully host a farm to school kickoff training in January for the state. And then we also agreed upon producing a short educational video, just kind of about what the farm to school program is for recruitment purposes and kind of just something kind of general to get people started. Currently, we haven't really developed any curriculum necessarily, but the training guide that was provided through the actual national training for facilitators was pretty extensive and had a lot of really good information in there. So we do have a strong start if we go off of what was already provided to us. We do know from discussions we've had, we would like to include stories in this kickoff and in future trainings, stories from producers that have successfully worked in the farm to school or participated in farm to school, excuse me. Then we'd like to kind of address some misconceptions that seem to float around about farm to school by doing kind of a Mythbuster section. And then obviously touching on the procurement side of farm to school, because I think that's pretty confusing to a lot of people. And I know Deb and Rhonda have worked to kind of update their website, so it's a little bit more friendly to producers, but I think there's still just a lot of questions that kind of arise between producer and schools. So looking at addressing some of those questions. And then I think we haven't touched on it too much, but I think we're all in agreement that it's really, really important to highlight the importance of the educational section related to farm to school, and just opportunities that a producer, maybe they aren't really interested in selling, but they do have a wonderful farm or a wonderful operation going, and they'd like to kind of just educate children on what they do, where their food comes from, and yeah, share ideas with teachers in the classroom or outside of it. So that's kind of where we are with farm to school training. We do have another meeting coming up in the beginning of December. So I'm kind of excited for that, to kind of touch more on some of that deeper curriculum stuff. So if anybody that's on the team wants to chime in and add anything, go ahead.
I also wanted to point out, and maybe we put this on the agenda, I apologize if I'm getting ahead of myself, but there is a farm to school grant that is open right now as well from the USDA. And we will try to get that posted to our member resources page. But it would be really great if, it's a really great opportunity for us to further farm to school in our state, and would be a great opportunity for several of us to work together to put together a proposal and further these farm to school efforts. I think coordination would really help move farm to school along. Staff time to make those direct connections between producers and schools. We've got a great model at Bismarck where Claire has been hosting farm to school meetings with Bismarck Public Schools, and that could really inform work in other parts of the state too. So I hope others will take a look at that grant as well.
Hey, brilliant. Thank you. Does anyone have anything to add to that? The farm to school?
Yeah, I just
Yes.
really hope that are there organizations on this call who might be applying for the farm to school grant? Because there have been years in which North Dakota didn't have an application go in, and it sounds like this great traction going and action going. Would love to see that there's at least one application from our state being submitted.
Great point. Yeah. So next we were going to have an update on the NRCS Urban Ag Subcommittee. Are we going to just pass that by, Stephanie? Because I don't see Mary on the call.
So we had invited, Mary mustn't have been able to join us. I guess I can briefly say that I was at that meeting. So USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, they focus on natural resources and soil health. They have a statewide technical committee meeting because they have staff all over the state, local soil conservation districts, and they're a really good way to reach local communities because their staff are in, I think maybe every county might have a soil conservation district or staff. I don't know if it's every county, but they're a great venue to reach farmers where they're at in their own communities. And so within the statewide technical committee, Mary also has a goal to have subcommittees. And I think this is maybe a national push. So she's launching an urban ag subcommittee. So a lot of the participants on this are NRCS staff, but there are also local organizations so Farms is participating, NDLFDA. I'm not sure if DCB and Strengthen ND are participating. I think so, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
Well, Stephanie, it looks like Mary just joined us. So,
Perfect.
So Mary, are you there?
Yes, hello, everybody. I am here.
Hi.
Sorry I'm late. I
Oh,
was
no
actually-
worries. Stephanie was just giving us a general update on the urban ag subcommittee, the meeting, but we'd love to have hear from you.
Well, thanks, Craig. I actually love to hear from the people who are participating. But I am very excited about this new subcommittee. So state technical committees have been around for a few farm bills now, and they are made up of local, state, and federal agencies in the conservation and agriculture world. And they're meant to, we review our programs and our policies with them, and I ask them questions like where they would see the priority for funds spent for natural resources, and just have this great state tech committee that meets 2 times a year. And I have not run mine with subcommittees because there have been some differences of opinion, and I just felt everybody needed to hear things. But what a good time it is for the agency and the secretary to say, you really need to have this urban agriculture subcommittee. So we're jumping back on board with subcommittees. I've got a great subcommittee started. We've had our first meeting just to introduce them to the state, what NRCS and the state technical does for USDA. And then also, I don't know that we talk much about the definition of urban, but urban means any place where there is infrastructure, where there are people, where there are things that aren't traditionally ag related, but where we want to grow food and fiber and so forth, and support the community. So we have a broad group we're bringing together in December. We'll come back together and decide where our vision is for this, as well as kind of a framework of how we want to do business. But from several aspects, I'll start with the soil health aspect. We do sometimes build high tunnels, or we put gardens in small communities where there may have been houses or infrastructure. We want to make sure that that is growing healthy food by testing the soil. And so we do have soil scientists out there that can help do that. Sometimes small farmers don't get the support that some of your progressive agriculture groups do. And so I want to make sure that NRCS and my staff can communicate with smaller non-traditional farmers and think about what conservation means to those. And then we look at feeding people, and I think that's very critical. Why would I work for USDA, the Department of Agriculture, if I wasn't thinking about feeding people? And I've seen the statistics for North Dakota. We aren't feeding even our own, and yet we're #1 state in agriculture in so many crops. So there's many ways we have opportunities in North Dakota to really grow urban agriculture. And so I'm from education to soil health to foods. And I'm really pleased that Stephanie and Karen and some of the others that represent farms and represent you guys and the farmers markets and the districts are coming together for this. So I won't keep talking because we still have a ways to go, and I want the group to direct what direction we will go in North Dakota, but definitely think that we have similar goals that the North Dakota Local Foods Development and this urban ag can go parallel down the road. So thanks.
All right, thank you, Mary. Did anyone have questions for Mary that they'd like to ask about this? I've got a couple, but I'm going to give everyone else the opportunity first. Okay, not all at once. Say the same thing to my classes, don't worry. So you answered my first question, Mary, which is how urban is being defined, and I'm glad it's a more inclusive definition than I was thinking. The other question I had is on your subcommittee, is there representation from the whole state? Like geographically, like each region?
I think we were able to get districts, soil conservation districts represented to make sure that we were representing all of the state. I've got Watford City, McKenzie County, they are very active in education, great group. And then Burleigh County, as well as Grand Forks and some of the larger towns with that for soil conservation districts. But then, and I don't know all the groups, but I think thanks to Stephanie and Karen and some others, I've got a good group that represents small producers throughout the state. However, it's always open, always welcome to for attendance by anybody and participation by other groups as they come forward.
Fantastic. That's great. I'm glad to, this is really exciting for me, right? So, so any other questions or additions to this before we move on? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mary. This is really exciting. I'm really glad to hear about this. So I look forward to hearing much more. And yeah, thank you. Anne, do you want to tell us a little bit about your new role with Strengthen ND?
Yeah, and I'll expand a little bit on my introduction. So we have been market gardeners for about 6 years in combination with other careers and in agriculture. And kind of this fall happened upon Megan's job opening for local food coordinator with Strengthen ND. And they have been working on a project for a couple of years called Farm Your Future ND. And if you've seen any of their Egg Week bits or pieces, there's been some videos posted on the Strengthen ND page, Facebook page. So I'd encourage you to go look at them. Ross Lockhart has been featured, his family farm has been featured on one. And so the goal would be to identify where are there openings in rural communities on possibly abandoned farmsteads or farmsteads that are being turned over and are empty sitting there. How can we strengthen the communities and hopefully bring in new farmers, possibly immigrant families, new families from out of state, and help them succeed in farming in North Dakota. And so my first job, I've been at it for just a couple of weeks now. And so if I haven't reached out and touched base with you individually, you're probably on my list. And so just trying to get a lot of feedback on this project. And we want to make sure it's a success when we start rolling it out. And really to identify what kind of training we need for these first initial families, how that's going to look, where that's going to be, what kind of, how the duration of the program. And so part of that you will all be seeing hopefully soon is a producer survey and also a consumer survey. I feel like it's important that not only do we've had some small farm surveys, NDSU has put one out in the last couple of years. I've had the pleasure of visiting with some of them, and Stephanie and I visited, so she's got great resources. And to maybe get a better feel for what the economic impact of these small farms are on their neighboring communities. There's no real formula right now, so we're trying to get a better handle on that, which will help with some of the grant processes going forward. And so the producer survey, hopefully it's a good time of year, everybody's kind of winding down, really to determine, as we're looking at micro farms, very small, very small farms and acreages, what can we do with them that's sustainable, renewable practices, you know, working with Menoken, College of Botno. We have so many great resources in the state with farms and all of you. And this is a really great time to be hopefully introducing this. And so on the flip side then, as I've been visiting with folks, we really need to make sure that we're identifying what are those outlets for the production. So if we're encouraging people to do vegetable production or meat production, where are they selling their products? And so are they able to make a decent living or a good chunk of their living off of that? So it's a lot to kind of wrap our heads around, but just kind of hitting the ground running and gathering as much information as we can right now.
All right. I didn't think it was possible to get more psyched after Mary's, but I'm psyched to see, you know, it just feels like there's kind of a critical mass coming for this, I'm hoping, right? And so thank you. I'm glad to have you or see in this new position, and and all these things starting to come together. Does anyone have any questions for Ann? Or
And I welcome any comments, questions. If you have any input, like I said, I'll probably be reaching out to all of you in the next few weeks. My email is ann@strengthennd.com. I'll put it in the comments too. So if you have anything to add as we get rolling, feel free to reach out to me.
fantastic. And then I know it'll be in the minutes, which are available after a little while. So awesome. So that's a perfect segue. And it's almost like we planned it, that some of us were meeting met Friday, I think. Was it Friday? Just Friday, right? And talking about different ways to help this whole local food movement and so on. And one thing that came up was the idea of a producer support group. And so support in multiple ways to define the word support. I mean, one, just a mutual, a network for producers to support each other, right? And I don't, Stephanie, you want to talk a little more to that? As I stumble over my words.
So when NDLFGA was founded back in 2017, one of the things we talked about was setting up topic-specific working groups. And we had defined 6 categories. And one of those was producer support. There was also, I believe, I'm going to get these a little bit wrong, but like aggregation and transportation, fundraising, marketing, working with Native communities, Native American communities, and policy support. So we're still, we haven't yet established all 6 of those. We're still working on that, but I see a lot of energy around those of us who work in the realm of producer support, having a regular meeting to share information. And so what I mean by this is, for example, in early October, thank you, Felicity posted the groups in the chat. Thank you, Felicity. In early October, Dakota College at Bottineau, North Dakota Department of Ag, North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association, and farms all got together. I think that, yeah, and NDLFDA. Felicity and I were representing both, and just talked about some of the areas where our work overlaps and where we collaborate. One of those examples would be the North Dakota Local Foods Conference. Another area is farm food safety. In order to scale up into larger markets, farmers may need to have to meet some food safety requirements. And traditionally, Dakota College at Bottineau and Department of Ag have taught like the FSMA and the GAPS training classes. And then farms includes that training in our Farm Beginnings course, but we rely on like Dakota College at Bottineau Extension, Department of Ag to provide that training. So there's lots of areas where those of us in this particular area of direct support to producers really benefit from working together. So I'm going to be reaching out to 8 organizations, 8 or 9 that I've identified that I know work in producer support. I'm setting up a doodle poll for an inaugural meeting. And I'm also welcoming others to join this. So those that I've identified already, of course, farms, Dakota College at Bottineau, North Dakota Department of Ag, North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association, Extension. They have a small farms program that Lindy Berg and Travis Hoffman have been heading up. Extension, NRCS, Strengthen ND with Ann and the Farm Your Future project. North Dakota Rural Development with their Beginning Farmer Project with Jill Hawkinson. And if I haven't named anybody who should be there, you are most welcome to join us. Like I said, those are the 8 that I can think of immediately to bring together. So I'll be sending out an email, and I'll be posting that on our member resources page. And hopefully this is just the beginning. Once we get this group meeting, then we'll form the other working groups as well.
All right. Okay, thanks, Stephanie. And so we see how our so my idea of support as a social worker, I'm like, well, we need to address all the producers, their, psychosocial well-being, and focus on that. And that might be something to talk about later on down the line. But, to make sure that our producers are healthy and doing well. But,
Craig, we are setting up farmer peer support networks through farms. Maybe we should bring you in to help us set up mentorship curriculum.
Happy to do it. Just let me know. Yeah.
Speaking
Okay.
of producers, I just wanted to note that we have a new person who's joined our call since we did our
Yep.
introductions, and it might be a producer, Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas, hi.
Yes, hello everyone. Yeah, sorry I'm very late. I just kind of figured I'd catch in the tail end here of it.
Glad to have you. You want to tell us Apple Creek Acres is in the thing. You want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what brings you to our meeting here?
So yeah, I'm just a local producer outside of Lincoln and Bismarck. I guess part of what's brought me to it, and maybe this plays into the comment you brought up, Craig, on the support, is wanting to, as a producer, be involved kind of in this side of things. How do you, develop local food, and all that stuff that was brought up. And I would say maybe from a support side, trying to figure out how do the producers get involved in it? Because I've attended meetings on and off. I kind of dropped off over the summer, since about April. And the one thing I've tried to figure out is, okay, I see all great stuff going on here, all this stuff, and really supporting it. How do I, as the producer, get involved in some of it? And that's kind of where I've tried, it's also what I don't know in that also, but just kind of looking at how to get involved in some of it. And maybe that's where some of the support is all these great programs. I've struggled myself. How do I, as a producer, come involved in those? And then maybe that's my own fault of not directly reaching out. Like, for example, last month, at least with Claire's Farm to School update, I had known about that kind of prior to, but at least kind of got more of the information from here since I did miss her meetings and knew, kind of got more information and kind of reached out there. And so maybe that's one area, is how with all of these programs that are being worked on and getting some of the producers involved in them. The other one from a support, and I think it very much aligns with yours, Craig, as you mentioned, the well-being and other stuff. I'm going through the second destruction of the plastic on my tunnel with this wind.
Oh, wow.
this year. So it's like, maybe like, it's like, okay, this is the second time. What have I not done right getting this thing braced with wind? Maybe I've done everything, and just, 50-mile-an-hour gusts, you're going to lose it at that point anyway. So what is kind of that group of just supporting those, people, or, that kind of network? And I know there are things out there, and I'm still trying to figure out how do you get fully involved with them, like NDFMGA and all that. So that's, I guess, my 2 cents on it.
All right, thank you. That's incredibly valuable. So thanks for sharing all of that. Thank you. Okay, does anyone because we're down to about 10 minutes or so. So do we have anyone wants a last word before we move on to the member updates and some future scheduling stuff?
It looks like Robert is connected to audio, and we haven't heard from
Oh,
him yet.
okay. Yeah. Robert? Okay, well, We tried. Okay, so some basic stuff, and there will be more information forthcoming, but we shifted the December meeting to the 14th, just because where the holiday falls, and are planning as last year, a virtual holiday social on the 21st at 5:30 p.m. And I know there will be additional details coming. So we'll go through, watch for those, and let's go into some member updates. So Felicity, do you have access to those? You want to share those with us?
Yeah, give me 1 second and I will pull up the member
Okay.
update page here.
So I can give ours from Wanawota over in Devil's Lake. So we have a food distribution Saturday for 275 families is what we ordered for since Thanksgiving's coming up next week. And also I am going through the training for the ANA, or Administration for Native Americans, grant process for us to apply for an ANA grant next year. So we have time to get the data and everything we need. And we're going through some major restructuring, but all for the good, all for the good. So Felicity.
Yeah, so this is the new, not that new anymore, our new ndlocalfood.org, which is our new website, and this is the member update page. Craig, you touched on this already, but just some details. This is the holiday social that we'll be hosting, and if you joined us last year, it's just a chance to connect with each other about just socially, and we have a couple like activities, and it'll be just a fun laid back meeting. And then I put this one up here about Farms, that Farms is also hiring a communications coordinator. And this is separate from the NDLFDA communications coordinator position. So 2 separate positions in communications, if you guys know anyone. It's also an AmeriCorps, so it's great for students or people who are looking for more flexible part-time work. And I see we have this one from the Bismarck. Go Bismarck Mandan. I don't know if
that's me. And if you click on where it says click here, yeah, then it goes more into, so there's a flyer there for, and Lucas, I wanted to point this out to you and any other producers on the call. So if you're in the Bismarck, Mandan, Lincoln area, we're having 2 more producer meetings for Bismarck Public Schools from schools. So December 1st and 2nd, trying to hit a couple different time slots to get as many people as we can. So it'll be similar to the meetings we had in October, but we are wanting to delve into a little more specifics this time. So Michelle and her staff will talk about specifically what type of produce they're looking for and talk a little bit about quantities and planning. So we want people to be able to plan to sell the farm to school instead of what we did this year is take kind of surplus things, which was great. But if we can both plan ahead, so the farmer knows, hey, I'm going to sell tomatoes and cucumbers to BPS this year, and they plant specifically for that, and then we can have a more reliable supply. If you have any questions, there's my email there.
Thank you. And that is all that we have here on the update page, but if there was anything that anyone wanted to share, now would be a good time to talk a little bit about it.
I want to remind everybody that the Pandemic Response and Safety Grant is open until the 22nd, so next week. And that is a USDA grant for producers and processors and marketers of specialty crops who incurred costs to respond to the pandemic. It's a super easy application. It's based on cost estimates that you spent or will spend before December 31st. And it's open to all farmers markets as well. So I just encouraging people to take advantage of that. Oh, and Farm Beginnings, we are recruiting students for our upcoming Farm Beginnings class. The class is going to start in the first week of January. Felicity is our facilitator this year. And I'll put the link to the page where people can register in the chat. Well, Mary asked in the chat if there's a way to set up an extra email message when the website gets updated with new information. And that's a great question. And Paul Overby actually asked the same question. So we've got Robert, our tech guy. He is working on that right now. So yes, that is possible and it is coming.
Okay, awesome. Anything else for the good of the order? That's all we got. So we will see everybody back here on the 14th of December. All right, thank you.